Hi everyone, it's Rosie here and welcome to this edition of Kitchen Table Repair Doctor. I said on one of my morning uploads, I showed the Midland Shortwave radio. It was built in Japan around 1970, and I picked this up several years ago because it was at a yard sale actually, and it was a yard sale held by a pilot who was retiring, a small non-commercial airline pilot who did, like small plane limousine taxiing people or sending people to this small airport to that small airport regionally, and he loved this radio. And I came to the yard sale. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I ended up at the yard sale at his place, and I said, wow, that's really a cool looking radio, because it's not often that you get an antenna, radio that has two different antennas on it. And not only two different antennas, but this particular shortwave antenna is 12 feet long. I tried to put it up here in the kitchen here at the casa, and there's no way. I was 2 feet short on taking it up all the way. So I guess you have to stick it out your window or not put it up all the way. And then you have a localized sort of FM antenna here, and it's really kind of cool. It's an 8-band, shortwave radio, and of course Midland Corporation was famous for CB radios going into the early to late 1970s, during that whole period when it seemed like everybody was kind of a trucker wannabe, breaker one night. But they also made the shortwave radios, one of which I have here. The radio was for sale for a grand sum of $5, and I was happy to buy it. But more important than that, and this is something you want to bear in mind, if you're ever buying like a TV or a radio or a stereo, and if you can buy it from the original owner, so much the better, because you can ask that owner. The owner told me, the pilot told me, it's a non-working condition. But because he was the original owner and had had it for so many years, I was able to ask him, well, what happened when it stopped working? He's like, young lady, I always love it when they call me young lady. Like, young lady, I was loading up my plane on the, getting ready to taxi down the runway, and I left the radio up on the wing. And I took off, and I got a call from a buddy of mine on the ground, the service guy, who said, hey, guess what? Hey, Frankie, your radio's on the ground here. Looks like she was rode hard and put away wet. Well, what had actually happened, the pilot had taken off, and I guess when he got up to, 80, 100 miles an hour or something, the radio flew off the wing and hit the tarmac, and probably bounced 30 or 40 times. But amazingly, because it is leather, and it's like motorcycle riders that wear leather and stuff, it's been amazingly protected. He radioed back down to his buddy, the mechanic, and he said, just put it in the shed for me. When I come back this afternoon, I'll pick it up. He came back in the afternoon. He had battery at that time. He turned it on, and he got nothing but kiss out of it. There was nothing to, it wasn't working anymore. He was going to take it to a repair place to get it checked out, but it was already 40 years old at that time, and there was no place that would even begin to service these, so he had no choice but to put it up for sale where I picked it up. Now, having known that it came off the wing of a plane, probably taking off down the runway at some point, gave me some clue that because some of the wiring and things and panels, the circuit panels, the circuit boards inside might be a little brittle, or one might have broken off and lost contact in the fall, that it would probably be something, if we look carefully, we might be able to obviously see what the problem is. That's what usually happens on impact falls. This is not a tube radio. In other words, it does not use the old-fashioned tubes that glow and light up. It uses transistors, capacitors, resistors, things that are discrete components, but they're passive. They don't move, they don't turn. The only thing that turns is the tuning knobs and the buttons go in and out, and that's about it. So, you know, there's very little to really break inside when something falls, even bumping and hitting and the ground and everything. What's often going to happen is maybe the transformer breaks loose because that's got a lot of mass to it. So we're going to open it up and we're going to take a look inside. I've already done some of the work on removing the screws in the back panel and had a preliminary look, but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. So, hey guys, as you can see here, this is really quite a handsome radio. It has the layout of the map in the world, and this is all put onto aluminum here, stenciled on it. It's really quite elegant looking. And then you can set your time. The outer dial is the time of the day, and the inner dial is the zone number. And you can figure out by zones here where the shortwave signals, where the who's broadcasting at that time. And of course, if you're DXing or listening to shortwave radio and stuff, and a lot of people have that hobby, it's always best to listen to that at nighttime because you pick up signals much more clearly when the sun is down and not causing interference. You know, I have it plugged in now, and I push the power button, and we get absolutely nothing out of that. It's dead, just as clean by the pilot. And I'll close that down, and I actually wanted to lay it down and take a look inside and see what we could find in the way of manufacturing marks and everything. So we can find out when this was made. And we can see it's from the Midland Corporation, and it's the model number 10-558. And when I went and looked the research on the internet, I saw that this particular model was manufactured in 1970 in Japan. I was pleased to see it sold recently. It was listed for $199.95. I'm not sure how much it actually sold for, but as with anything that's vintage, the price rises as it gets older. But, you know, there's nothing super scarce about this radio. But if I can get it in working condition, so much the better. So I opened it up, and that told me, you know, if you want all the specs and the information, it tells you the frequencies of the bands and things. It tells you, you know, all the eye up to power requirements, the tuning range, and all that. So when I took a look inside here, you know, the first thing I do is take a good glance in here. And I noticed that none of the capacitors seem bad. You know, sometimes you get very bulged out capacitors that have dried out and gone bad. All the tuning coil, the inside antennas look good here for AM antenna and public service broadcasting. I removed the battery box and just shifted it over to the side so that I could take a look. And immediately this morning when I looked down on the side, let me get a screwdriver for pointing here. Let me get my let me turn this off for my iPad. And when I got down here, I noticed this. You know, this is the transformer here. You see this big sort of brass-colored thing, and you can sort of see half of it if I remove that. And you can see the whole transformer here. And that transformer takes that 120-volt power in from here, and you see the positive and negative little wire nuts on there to cap that off, one positive, one negative. And that's actually feeding into this transformer here, which actually feeds the house power into one side, and then it off the other side it has various taps. You can see the green, the white, and what those taps do is they run to various points. They provide power for the amplifier board here. They provide power for the tuning board over here. That's where you see all the tuning coils and all that up here. And also for a fine-tuning circuit here. And it also drives the lights inside of it. But when I look down here, I noticed that, and I always look at power first because that's the component that usually seems to go bad. I noticed that there were two wires, and I don't know how well you can see it. A green one here that has come disconnected, and I saw another green one here that had come disconnected. So I immediately saw that there were two important wires that we're missing from this power circuit board right here. You know, if that board's not getting power from the transformer over here, underneath this, underneath this battery pack, if that transformer is not giving power over to this board here, there's no way that the power, this whole unit is going to power up. So I suspected that this might be a problem. You know, over time, solder joints get very brittle, and I suspect when this radio fell off the wing of the plane, this transformer has such mass to it that it actually shifted a little bit and pulled, these wires were very tight here, and probably pulled these two green connections off of here because they appear to be the most tight. There's really no slack in them. And when this radio hit the ground and bounced end over end, who knows how many times, that transformer just shifted enough to pull those two green wires off of there, the feeds for the power circuit board. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get the soldering iron out, and I'm going to work on them and reconnect those two, and then we'll see if we made any headway on getting them going. All right, guys, welcome back. We had the soldering iron out here, and we reconnected those two green wires. And make sure if you're doing soldering, don't use crap solder. Make sure you buy the good stuff. You know, otherwise the other stuff degrades over time and it's brittle, and it's worse than having no solder at all. So I'll show you what we did inside here. You can see now, if you take a peek down here, that the two green wires have now been connected on the board. And you know, this one I determined goes to the right. I checked the schematic, which is still available online. And this tap goes to the right side here, and this other tap goes to the left side on the board. So they're now they're soldered into place, and they're good, strong connections. So what we'll do now is we'll flip her over. We're going to unplug for safety's sake. Be careful when you're using a soldering iron. For safety's sake, we're going to unplug that now and let that sit down there. And now we're going to sit the unit upright. We have the shield that we're going to put in later. There's no sense putting all the radio shielding back on their signal shielding until we're sure that we have success. So we're just going to temporarily close this up because we can come back later and do the final hook down there. And we're not going to be running battery on that. This thing is really nice. It's nice to see something that's all leather here. This is really a nice unit, despite what somebody called me and said I'm a fool and it's a piece of junk. It's actually quite a handsome unit. So we'll now plug the unit back in again over here, and I always unplug things for safety's sake when I'm working on them. You don't need to get yourself shocked if you don't have to, that's for sure. And now I'm going to put up the big antenna as far as it will up to the ceiling of the kitchen. This is one big whip antenna here. And now we're going to see if we put the power on here, if we get anything at all. Oh wow, we're powered right up. So obviously this guy had a local, the last thing he was listening to probably when he was on the ground before takeoff was that local FM station here there, because that's still what the dial set on a country country station, so pretty cool. And let's get down here and turn the dial a little. We don't want the music mafia after us today here. And let's test some of these features. It's the wrong time of day for shortwave listening, but it's supposed to have a dial light here. And yeah, I can see inside there that you can see the light flicking on and off. You can probably see that it's made not to be on all the time. It's just when you're signal searching and all that. So we're on FM now, and it's got the rough tune, and then it's got the fine tune inside there, which is really nice. And I'm a little short. I'm not going to try to do any shortwave Yeah, it's really coming in nice.
Dappled campgrounds at Lake Sonoma to the luxurious private pool at the Kenwood Inn and Spa. This is
Make
the
sure
Norma
to be able to get AM okay.
For creating your first and political icon. Brought to you by Lefty O'Doul.
And it's probably Shortwave band. It's probably going to be the case during daytime. In October and March are real bad months for sunspots and stuff. Probably not going to get anything right now. Yeah, so what we want to do is try that at night. Anyway, I would declare that a success. You know, the important thing when you're doing a lot of repairs is understand what the problem was when it went bad. Whenever you can talk to an original owner about, why the radio went kaput, it's going to help you a lot when it comes time to repair. And just don't get the soldering iron out and start fiddling around. Try to put a logical story together of what might have happened. As soon as I heard this thing bounce down the runway, and God knows how many times, my first thought was that power transformer that's mounted in the bottom might have come temporarily, just jarred loose, just stretched that metal that it was mounted on enough that when it went back into position, it pulled those two green, very tight taps off of the power board, and that's exactly what happened. Well, look, I've got a nice functioning radio. I think I'll try to do some DX shortwave listening one night. Probably next week you guys will be along. We'll see if we can tune in anything cool on the old Midland radio here. So for $5 and about an hour of work and a lot of fun, we got a really nice conversation piece. And if nothing else, we got a really cool boombox to take out to parties and stuff. So thanks for being around for this episode of the Kitchen Table Repair Doctor, and we'll see you next time.